What's up, guys? We're back. We're sitting upstairs in a room that isn't mine, but I'm sleeping here for a little bit. I'm back home, so yeah, it's kind of late, and I am frankly bored. So, I know a lot of the stuff that we talk about here is about my journey writing a book, and now we're beginning the revision phase, which is really sweet and cool, and I'm proud of myself for that. And proud, yeah, that's a word. That can be a sentence. I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of you. If no one's told you recently, I'm proud of you. All right. And I mean it. I mean it. I think tonight, I figure I just try something new and talk about something. And I think we can talk about that, the whole I'm proud of you thing. Um, Something that, I don't think maybe I wasn't told enough when I was younger, or maybe I didn't feel enough. Wait, this is good. I look, you just spinned off this. Yeah, this is cool. We can talk about this. Someone random talk about late night. All right. Yeah, being proud of yourself. It's something that I don't think, I was or I've been for a while, or at least for, a big portion of my life when I was younger. And I don't think a lot of people are proud of themselves. You might have your affirmations or something if you're into that and you say, I'm proud of myself. But, it's one thing to feel it, to embody it. And, it can be hard sometimes, especially if, your life isn't going the way that you want it to go. Um, and I used to think that my life needed to go the way that I wanted it to go for me to be proud of myself. And as I've kind of gotten a little older, I've seen the type of cynical cycle that puts you through, when you don't feel proud of yourself, um, you start acting in a way to prove to yourself that you should be, right? And, I've talked about previously over the past several years, I've read a lot of books on self-help, self-improvement, psychology, spirituality, etc. And to get better, because I think part of me didn't believe that I was already enough, because I was imperfect, because I was flawed, because I was like every other human on this planet, right? And that meant I couldn't be proud of myself and actually feel it. It took, I think being proud of yourself is something that it's a tricky thing, because I wasn't proud of myself, so what would I do? I would try to make myself proud of myself, right? Because I wasn't feeling it already. So in a way I would outsource for it, right? And I think a healthy way to do that is through productivity. And I think a lot of people do that. A lot of people um go to productivity and routines and self-improvement because they're lacking a certain sense of inner fulfillment, and they believe that through that that's where they'll find it. And I think that's a start. I think that's devotion to self-love and taking care of yourself. However, I do also believe it gets to a point where you slow down enough and you reflect on some things, and you question, well, why am I even doing this? Like, why am I getting up at 5 in the morning to go to the gym, to get all this stuff done? Why am I trying to maximize efficient my day? Why am I trying to, meditate so much? Like, why am I trying to mitigate all the ups and downs of my life and, hit the most top peak performance that I can? For what? I think that is some sort of pseudo inner fulfillment that you get, because at least for me, I would do all these things in a day, and then at the end of the night I go to bed and I'd be like, yeah, I did it. I'm proud of myself because I got all that shit done. And but then what do you do when you don't what do you do when you're distracted, right? What do you do when you can't make a decision on what's the best thing to get done because you're trying to maximize every ounce of your time and make sure that you don't fuck up, because then if you fuck up X, Y, and Z, and that is a fearful way to live your life. And you just become afraid. Become afraid of the ups and downs and the uncertainties of life. And it's a certain type of control. You're trying to control your life to make it something that makes you feel okay, rather than just being okay with however it looks and however it goes and however you feel, knowing that you can handle it and it is okay, and you should be proud of yourself no matter what your days look like. And that's a hard thing to do, because how do you know that you can handle it? Right? Like, how do you know that you're doing your best, right? um if you're constantly trying to step it up every time, and where you could be doing better because you did this right. And it's like, I think part of it stems from being afraid to fail and afraid to disappoint and let yourself down, and you know not feel good, because that's why you're doing it. You're not doing these things as, like I said, an expression of like your inner fulfillment. You're doing them in fear of your lack thereof fulfillment. So then a lot of these things can be done in a sense of, to give yourself some sense of inner completeness, some pride even. You feel pride when you get up early and you go to the gym and you eat healthy, or you feel pride when you have that perfect conversation with someone that you're attracted to, or you feel pride when you get that A on that exam. And then pride inherently, in this book I read called Letting Go by Dr. David R. Hawkins, which you guys should read it. Pride is an interesting thing, but inherently it's negative. Because if you feel prideful that you did one thing, that means you're going to feel shameful if you did the next. So pride, there's shame in pride, okay? And there's lack thereof, inner fulfillment in pride. Pride is seeking, inner fulfillment based on external circumstances, right? But your inner fulfillment, it's inside. It's there. You're human. You are whole. And again, these are all perspectives. I know I say some of this stuff with some conviction, but feel free to challenge it, believe what you want. This is just my viewpoint and what's helped me. And it gets you in a cycle, man, and it does. And I recently had someone who, no longer I speak to for certain reasons. But this person really showed me something, because I remember when they weren't at their best. And I remember I loved them like just as much, even when they weren't at their best. And, when we stopped talking, I, started to reflect on my relationship with myself. And, when I'm not at my best, how do I feel about myself? When I'm not the most productive in a day, when I'm not the perfect ideal version of myself that I want to be all the time, how do I feel about myself? And it's usually not good, right? And I think part of me is learning now to be more messy and to be okay with it. Not because that's how I want my life to be in the future, not because I don't have goals or ambitions or dreams, but because it is okay. It is okay to fuck up. It is okay to not have everything all together all the time. And, it doesn't feel like that, but it is. And life isn't about not feeling the downs, all right? And I think part of me, that's why I got so big into meditation when I first started. Yes, meditation and all the stuff I read had immense improvements in my life. It's the reason why I'm even able to talk about this right now. But there was improvements to a fault, where then I started to seek it as another thing to make myself feel good, to mitigate the lows of my life too, because I didn't want to feel sad. And meditation helped me overcome all these emotions and these hard things. And yes, there's good to that, but there's also, when you do it to a certain point, I also believe part of it was me just being in denial and not being okay with letting life sway me the way that it has in the past, because I was afraid, because I never got taught how to handle all these things, right? And then I finally learned, and I'm like, I'm going to handle everything like that. But that's not the point. The point isn't to not be human. The point is to feel your humanness and be okay with it, no matter how it looks. And I just think self-improvement is it's a beautiful thing, right? And I think it's one of the best ways to, cope with lack thereof inner fulfillment. Although the reality is at the end of the day, there's nothing to improve about you, and you are perfect, and you are as whole, as complete as you could ever be, and I'm proud of you. And you have, and back to that thing about, how do you know you're going to be okay? I mentioned that, like, how do you know that through the, if you just let go and you stop trying, like, how do you know you're going to be okay? And that's something, man, that's just takes time, and it takes comfortability with not knowing if you're going to be okay, and then just living out that experience. And let me tell you something, you probably fucking will be, because there's been a lot of situations, I bet, in your life, I bet you can think of fucking 100 if you tried, 1,000, where you didn't know, you thought this was it. Part of you was so afraid of how it was going to go, how it was going to turn out. But guess what? You're still here, you're still breathing, and you're still living this life, and it's still your own. And you can still make the most of it, no matter what it looks like. And I bet you all those hard feelings of uncertainty and those stressful times and those times where you've been down and you haven't been perfect and you've been beating yourself up and you wish you could be better, those aren't the points where you need to say, oh, hey, I need to change myself. Those are the points where you're like, okay, I'm proud of myself because I tried enough in my life to even get to this point of failure. Because honestly, to even experience those negative emotions and failures and, lack thereof inner completeness, it means that you're pushing yourself. Like you're pushing yourself to try because you care about yourself and you're willing to do things even if you know deep down that it could really, hurt you. And that is a beautiful thing, because that puts, when you're vulnerable, only through vulnerability can you grow. Vulnerability is saying, hey, this is me and this could really hurt and whatever might happen, but I'm going to be honest with myself, and this might suck, but you know what, I'm going to feel these emotions and whatever comes with this, and I'm going to be okay, and it's going to be okay. That's like the courage to be vulnerable, in my opinion, and that is growth. Okay, that's not being a bitch, it's not being a pussy, just because you go through times where you're fearful, you're sad, you're worried, you're anxious. Like, those are the experiences that grow you the most. And I think self-improvement can just be one of those things where, you're trying to avoid feeling all those. You're trying to boost yourself up so much so you never have to feel that way about yourself again. But that's not the goal, all right? And it's okay to be imperfect, all right? It's okay to be that, because you are human. You're never going to feel love. You're never going to feel love in your heart as a robot, all right? So that true love that I think that everyone wants for themselves, it comes through imperfection, and it comes from not just trying so hard and just fucking up sometimes and making a decision even if it's the wrong one. If your heart's in a good spot, and everyone's out here just living their own life, and you don't need another day to go by. You don't need another accomplishment. You don't need another success or to be proud of yourself. And I just want to say that to whoever needs to hear it, because I can think of a lot of people that I see on a daily basis in my life that, I don't think are. And I think there's certain things that they outsource for this sense of inner fulfillment and completement. May that be, success within the business world, or scholastically, or through relationships. And it is it might seem well in theory, because you're putting all this effort in to get the life that everyone idealizes. However, the life that everyone idealizes is the one that feels good, and I don't think that little dopamine you get from then getting that accomplishment and then having to pursue it again and pursue it again. So notice if you're doing things self-improvement wise and it's just a dopamine hit and then it fades. And that takes getting in tune with yourself a little bit to realize, you know, why are you doing the things that you're doing? And sometimes it can really help to just sit down and write about it and get real and honest and raw with yourself, and also say where you are at. You know, like, why do you do all the things that you do? How do they make you feel when you get them done? How do you feel when you don't do them? How do you feel when you fuck up? How do you feel when you succeed? Right? And just lay it all out for yourself, not because any of it's a bad thing. Rather, it's just something to know yourself, okay? And I think what you'll find throughout all that is that you're a person who cares, and you're a person who tries, and you're a person who's just, you know, wants to have a good life. And there's no shame and no judgment in any of that. All right. I love you. I'm proud of you. You know, I'm proud of myself for making progress. And yeah, this video was a little different. I don't usually talk about shit like this, but fuck it. We did that. Maybe we'll do some more of these. So let me know if you like it. If you don't, you can hit me with a middle finger in the comments. Yeah, and yeah, I'm gonna start the revision process, I think tomorrow, or at least give it an attempt, and we're gonna keep working. Love, love, love. Have a good night, guys. Sleep well.